Welcome to a very special Safe Schools Rainbow Roundtable. We're doing this 4-part series on Project 2025. It's July 16th, 2024, and this is part 2. You may not yet know of Project 2025, but you will certainly come to understand its effect on your life starting January 20th, 2025, Inauguration Day. Project 2025 is a radically conservative 920-page manifesto on what Donald Trump, GOP, and evangelicals plan to do on day one of a new administration. This plan, largely written by the radically conservative Heritage Foundation, is anti-LGBTQ, anti-students and youth, anti-schools, will divide families and draw lines in the sand for Christian nationalism and against diversity, equity, and inclusion, and much more. Our 4-part series will explore Project 2025. This is Safe Schools and the Rainbow Roundtable. Here's the Project 2025 mission statement. Quote, "It is not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. This is the goal of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project. The project will build on 4 pillars that will collectively pave the way for an effective conservative administration." End quote. This is a special Safe Schools Rainbow Roundtable exploring and understanding Project 2025 and its likely effects on LGBTQ+ students and youth. This special series is made possible with the incredible support of Richard Quadracci and the Quadracci Family Foundation. The Quadracci family has been instrumental in their support of the LGBTQ community. Thank you for your support of the LGBTQ students and youth from AHF and the incredible Florida AIDS Walk that in 2024 raised more than $3.4 million for vital LGBTQ nonprofits, including Safe Schools. Thank you for your support from Children's Trust of Miami and their recognition that LGBTQ students and youth are vital to the diversity of our schools and our community. Thank you from your support from Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network. This nonprofit media company developed this broadcast and platform powered by their mission pillar to support LGBTQ youth and students. To help us navigate this 4-part series on Project 2025, let's introduce our very diverse panel. First, let's welcome Rebecca Thompson, candidate for Broward County's public schools. Let's welcome social media influencer Tiffany Williams. She is the host of Safe Schools, Tiffany's Explains It All. Let's welcome special education and 7th grade civics teacher, Brian Bender. Let's welcome the gay guru, Al Ferguson, a longtime participant with RuPaul's Drag Race. He is the creator of television programs including It's Happening Out, The Faye What Show, and the world's only LGBTQ+ daily evening news show, Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome Harold Marrero. He is a pastor and the chief operating officer for Safe Schools. Now let's dive right into understanding Project 25. This is part 2 as we look at the real-life examples of how Project 25 will affect LGBTQ+ students and youth, teachers, schools, administrators, and more. In this segment, we'll explore fictional scenarios to illustrate how the proposed policies in Project 2025 could impact the daily lives of queer Americans if enacted. Through these stories, we'll see how life might change over the next 4 years and how the mental health effects of these actions could impact generations to come. Let's imagine Sarah, a young professional living in a vibrant city. Sarah is openly lesbian and has always felt secure in her job due to protections against discrimination. However, with the rescinding of regulations that prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation, Sarah finds herself in a precarious situation. Sarah's landlord informs her that her lease will not be renewed, citing personal discomfort with her lifestyle. When she seeks a new apartment, she faces multiple rejections solely based on her sexual orientation. At work, Sarah's supervisor starts making derogatory comments, and despite reporting into HR, no action is taken because the company no longer fears legal repercussions. Imagine living in fear of losing your home and job simply because of who you are. This scenario highlights the vulnerability queer individuals could face without legal protections. Next, let's consider Alex, a transgender teacher in high school. Alex has been openly transitioning with the support of a few understanding teachers and friends. Under the new interpretation of sex discrimination laws, Alex's school no longer recognizes his gender identity. He is forced to use the facilities that align with his assigned sex at birth, leading to daily harassment and bullying. The school's refusal to acknowledge his identity also means he cannot participate in sports teams that match his gender identity, isolating him further from his peers. Alex's experience shows how denying recognition and protection to transgender individuals can lead to systemic erasure and increased social stigma, profoundly affecting their mental health and well-being. Consider Emma, a middle school student who is beginning to understand her sexual orientation. She's curious and looking for information, but finds that her school's curriculum has shifted to abstinence-only education, with no mention of queer topics. Emma feels isolated and confused. Without access to comprehensive sex education, she turns to unreliable online sources, leading to misinformation and increased anxiety. Her school's refusal to discuss LGBTQ+ issues means she has no supportive adult to turn to, exacerbating her feelings of loneliness and fear. Emma's story emphasizes the importance of inclusive education in providing LGBTQ+ youth with accurate information and a supportive environment to explore their identities. Let's also look at Josh, a high school student whose parents have strong conservative beliefs. Josh is gay but has not come out to his family, fearing their rejection. Under new parental rights policies, Josh's parents demand the school remove any queer content from the curriculum and prohibit teachers from discussing these topics. Josh's school complies, leaving him without access to affirming resources and support. When Josh confides in a trusted teacher, the teacher is legally required to inform his parents, leading to a hostile and unsafe home environment. Josh's situation demonstrates how overreach in parental rights can deny queer youth the support they need, potentially putting them at risk in unsupportive home environments. These fictional scenarios really highlight the potential real-world impacts of Project 2025's proposed policies. So panelists, how do you think these scenarios reflect the broader societal impacts of rescinding anti-discrimination protections? And what can we do as a community to support those most affected and advocate effectively to prevent policies from being implemented?
I'm going to just hop onto that really quickly.
Go for it.
Besides being an influencer, I'm also the director of outreach for Safe Schools South Florida. And the description of my job, I go and talk to kids. I talk to teens. I talk to a lot of children from different ranges. And one of the things that was I thought interesting when you were talking about the segment and like the examples, all I kept thinking to myself is, our kids are already facing this. This is not an example. It's a reality. It's currently happening. The only difference is in the examples is that now it will start affecting the adults, because that's when it kind of becomes more serious. And I've noticed that especially in a lot of queer youth spaces where I've had queer youth being like, I want to have spaces where I can be seen, where I can talk to other kids that are like me or part of the same alphabet, you know? And the thing is that I hear a lot of sympathy from adults around them. They're like, oh, you know, I want to support them. I'm like, but how are you supporting them? Like, oh, well, I don't want to cause trouble. I'm like, your child faces, you know, discrimination every single day. And it breaks my heart because we've been doing a lot of workshops recently over the summertime. And a lot of these kids, oh wait, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. A lot of these kids are really seeking community. They want friends. They want to build something together with other people. And I'm starting to see them now become into who they are and being able to tell me what their preferred pronouns are, what their preferred name is. And it's so beautiful to me to see them be who they are and not, you know, I'm not questioning them. I'm giving them space to be as creative as they want or as loud as they want and take up space. And this project is just going to not just minimize like everyone else that's part of minority groups, because it's not just the LGBTQ plus that it's going to be affected. It's going to be everyone else. And it's just very frustrating because a lot of these kids complain. And I just feel like a lot of adults don't hear it until the problem comes to their front door. And then all of a sudden, oh, we need to take arms. Now we need to worry about this. It's like, you should have been worried about this. This is happening. This is currently what they're going through. How are we going to do something about it and not be afraid to rock the boat and be able to stand up, because those kids are going to turn into adults. So the only way to teach them the right way to kind of go about things is the current adults that are surrounding them.
Yeah.
You know, Tiffany, I just want to say first, I love that you get emotional on the idea of what you're doing for students and youth. I think that is beautiful. You know, there's this old anecdote, again, the baby boomer sitting at the table. There's this old anecdote among retirees. We don't care about the schools. We don't have any skin in the game, and so the quality of the school experience is irrelevant to us. And there is some truth to that, in that seniors, of which, by the way, that's baby boomers, don't care about youth in the same way that other generations of our society do. And I think that there is some reference to that in LGBT. LGBT older queer people that are maybe married, maybe partnered, generally are not with children and do not have children in schools, that baby boomer LGBTs fit that anecdote that we hear. We don't care about this. And as a result, that can lead to exactly what you just said. While we might intellectually understand the point you just made, it's really not our deal. And so if they're having trouble in school, if they're being bullied in school, it's not my thing. And so I'm not as involved in it as I should be. Now that's shocking, but I really think that that is true. And broadly, whether it's LGBT or it's baby boomers in general, it leads to the understanding, at least, that Project 2025 comes from a place of, we don't really care about that. And if that's true, our problem is really gigantic, because your emotion, while can be appreciated, is not really something that's going to be moved on, because we really don't care too much about that. I know it's shocking. That's not my point of view, but I do think that for baby boomers, both in our queer community and outside our queer community, that explains Project 25.
Well, I think most of the examples are actually true. So I was a school social worker when the parental rights bill got enacted, and the district really didn't give us any guidance. Teachers probably as well didn't get any guidance of like what that actually means. And in the social workers code of ethics, like we are not supposed to tell people, like what people entrust with us unless it's child abuse, elder abuse, suicide. And that just broke that covenant we have as a practice. But we had, one of the reasons I left is because I had multiple kids come up to me completely upset. One girl in particular came up to me crying. I asked what was wrong. I asked if she wanted to come into my office, and she said, and beforehand I was like, just so you know, I have to tell your parents that you came and talked to me. And she said, never mind, I'm fine, and walked away. And it could have been nothing. It could have been something very small, a friend fight, but I will never know, was that kid getting bullied? Was that kid being abused at home? Like, what was making them so upset that they didn't want their parents to know? But it is something that's happening already. This is very much true in our youth. It's very much, and I think adults who care are scared to act on it because they don't want to lose their license or their job. And so at what point do we have to say, like, it doesn't matter? Like, the safety and well-being of this child is so much more important that it doesn't matter if I lose my job, because it's more important that they belong and that they're here. LGBT youth, as you guys probably know, are 4 times as likely to commit suicide. And what we're doing in the state of Florida is just pushing them further and further back. And I don't know the solution, but it's very upsetting.
I'd like to drill down on some of the things that I'm hearing. So you're saying that baby boomers, you not included, but your cohort, especially, non-LGBT and LGBT, well, minus the T, probably because the boomers are not into the T so much.
That's right. Unfortunately.
I want to know, do you believe that the generations that are coming up after you, let's say my generation, I'm a millennial, Gen Z, do you think that when they reach, if we're lucky enough to reach, our more advanced ages, do you think we are going to be as apathetic as the boomers? Do you think it was something that is inherent to the boomers in the way that they were raised?
Yeah, it's a fabulous question. To the best of my ability to answer a very complex question like that is to say, we don't know at best. But at the end of the day, my cohort, baby boomers, are going to do everything possible to stop you and to stop you. We're not even going to set a process in America that allows you to get to that decision making, much less allows you to get to that decision making, because we as baby boomers are so scared of you and of what we fundamentally think America is all about. It explains why white, principally men, but also women, Christian nationalism is so powerful in America. Because we're scared of you, and we're scared of you, because you will change what we think America is. So the real answer from my seat to your question is, we're not going to know for a long, long time, because we're not going to allow you to influence American politics, our society, our schools. We're just not going to allow it, because over the last 15 years, you've scared us so much. Again, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about my cohort. You've scared us so much, we're not going to risk it. It's why Project 2025 is created. It explains 2016 and that presidential election. It explains the last 4 years through our current president and what the former president and the GOP and evangelicals in America are designed to do. We are going to stop you as millennial and you as Gen Zer.
But I think that there's a real generational memory loss, considering that it was the boomers that changed American culture. I mean, you were all the hippies. Like, what happened to the hippies?
Where did we go?
Where did the hippies go?
They became yuppies.
Yeah, but seriously, like, this generation changed how America is America. They were the anti-culture. And what I find very concerning is that if you were to look at what was happening during the time that boomers were coming of age, with the riots, with the anti-war protests, with what was happening in universities, and then you see what's happening now in the same exact, I mean, it's like you can show 2 different images up, put it in black and white, and you cannot tell where they're from.
Yeah.
And yet the response, it's so forgetful of the things that you all went through. And I don't even want to make this a generational thing, because I feel like we get so caught up in the generations that we start to like, that's another way to subdivide us. And you see it online all the time, like, oh, what, millennials don't think they're hip anymore, or what Gen Z says about boomers. It's like, that is like, to me, that is like BS. Like, what we should be doing is forming connections across the table, forming intergenerational connection, understanding, like, why have you forgotten who you were? Not you, Al, but I mean, like just your generation. Why have you forgotten this? And what can you teach us so that we can do better? And then what can we teach Gen Alpha so they can do better? And I think that there is a fear of like, what is America going to look like? And it's like, it is not up to you to decide. It's up to the next generation to decide, just like you decided what America became after your generation. And like you talked about suicide, and I think that's going to be a huge, that to me is like, people are going to start waking up when kids start to die. And this is like, it's brought me back to the book and the movie Prayers for Bobby, that this, this parent was a kind of like a Christian nationalist, and when their child came out, they were like, oh no, you're not gay. Like, putting little Bible verses in his room in the mirror. And this is, when I first watched it, I was very triggered because that's what my parents did. They put little Bible verses, like I wasn't out yet, but just by being a disobedient child, they put all these Bible verses around my room, and I'm like, oh, that's so gross. And then I saw Prayers for Bobby, and I'm like, I was sobbing, and I was just like, this is a lot. But people will start changing when their kids start dropping dead.
We hope.
But it will happen. I mean, like, you have to completely disassociate when your kid starts to, like, when your kid dies by suicide. Like, that's a shock. That will either shock you to, like, go in deeper or come completely out of it. That's one of those, like, post-traumatic growth moments that you can either, like, change or not.
But right there, it sounds like you're implying that there's a choice point. So on the one hand, I hear you saying you absolutely have to change after your child unalives themselves, as the Gen Zers say now, because you can't use suicide on certain social media.
Yeah.
So when a child unalives themselves because of their gender identity or whatever difference they're having, I don't know that the parents necessarily depends. I believe that it depends on the level of the indoctrination and socialization of the parents, because there was a student, and I believe this person was non-binary. This person was beat up in a school bathroom. I forget exactly where, could have been the middle of the country somewhere. Could be wrong, but definitely was in Florida. And they were still being misgendered by their family, mother and father, in newspaper articles. I don't know that is, I believe that there was a choice point there. This person unalived themselves after they were beat up, felt that they were not receiving the proper support at school, proper support at home, and then to be misgendered by your family members, as they're speaking about your life and no longer having one. I think that, I was born in the 80s. I wasn't cognizant enough to know exactly what was going on in terms of the AIDS epidemic. But in 1987, it was raging. And I've seen a lot of documentary films. I've seen a lot of movies, dramatic depictions of that time. There are gay men that were calling their parents that they maybe hadn't spoken to in years and years, dying, of Kaposi sarcomas, and really, it's their parents would hang up on them. I mean, that's
and largely, I just want to call the elephant in the room out. I'm a Christian. You're a pastor. I am very supportive of the Sunshine Cathedral mission here in South Florida. But I'm a Christian, and I still identify as a Christian in that cohort. But at the end of the day, evangelicalism is at the heart of why this hate in America is developing. Every survey in the United States shows that the number one cause of hate and discrimination viewed by LGBTQ community at the top of the list, it's not family, it's not friends, it's not school bullying, it's church. The number one. Every survey shows that. And because evangelicals want to sell a literal interpretation of God and faith and the Bible, they use that as a baseball bat against LGBT's heads. That's not going to go away. And when we watch what we've watched in Louisiana, to post the Ten Commandments in every classroom in that state, and to have a Bible in every classroom in the state of Oklahoma, and to teach from it, all you are subliminally doing is saying, use this as literal fact against the LGBTQ community. It's going to get worse. And Project 2025 is an attempt to implement and then solidify that approach against LGBT, which is what Tiffany's point is of what she experiences in dealing with LGBT youth, whether it's in middle school and they become questioning, or whether it is don't say gay, or whether it's in the library of banning books. Schools should be safe places to prevent suicide, to not need a Trevor Project, which we desperately need, to not need a Safe Schools, which we desperately need. We have to overcome the evangelicalism of, especially led by baby boomers in America, that we are going to be a Christian nationalist political society. And if that happens, which is what Project 2025 is designed to do, among the top of the list of where we're going to change America is against the LGBTQ community. And to me, that just seems to be a fact. Faith is the cause of what we're watching.
But I think there's there's an issue here, because in the church, and particularly in the progressive church tends to be mainline, and by mainline I mean like the traditional Episcopalians, Presbyterians, Lutherans, you see United Church of Christ, or Congregationalists, and they're mainly filled with older white people. Okay, now
as almost every church.
In the church, as I've been, I've grown up in the church. I have preached in many churches, and the one thing that they tell you is you cannot talk about politics from the pulpit. But it's not just talking about politics from the pulpit. It's you can't even mention acts that are happening. You can't take a prophetic mantle and say you shouldn't put kids in cages, because that's talking about politics. And I had this experience one that I was, I was really grossed out by kids dying in these cages that were crossing the border, and children were dying around Christmas. And I did a sermon that said, what the kids are dying in these cages, they're like Christ dying in these cages. And someone came up to me after the sermon and said, I really don't like the fact that you mentioned, a Republican person. And I'm like, I never said blue, red, purple, gray, whatever. I mentioned an act. And the fact that you felt attacked, that's more on you. That's, something moved in you. You should lean into that, that movement that happened inside of you. Maybe the Spirit is telling you, you should change your ways, because there were no politics from this pulpit. I'm talking about like issues. And what I feel like they do is that they silence the clergy, because particularly in progressive spaces, because clergy are the moral barometers of what is happening. But they don't silence themselves. They don't silence their own clergy. Their own clergy can do whatever they want. They can support whoever they want. They can say whatever they want, and nothing ever happens. But they threaten progressive clergy with, being kicked out of the church. Like, you can't say this, you can't say that. And that's happening from the inside of progressive churches. It's not happening from the outside. Because evangelicals know that the moment they start throwing rocks at that glass house, it's all going to come down. That's happening within the progressive churches. It's happening within, like Tiffany said, the call is coming from inside the house. I love that. I love that, because it's like, yes, it is. And we're destroying ourselves in the process, because you're silencing the one voice that can actually bring action. You're silencing. And this happened with Martin Luther King Jr. as well, when he was in Birmingham jail. When white clergy were telling him, can you please, calm down, wait for your turn. We'll help you, but just, yes, what you're saying is correct, but just can you do it less loudly, please? Can you just calm it down? And he said, no, I will not calm it down, because my kid is afraid, because I am afraid, because I shouldn't be afraid in this country. And I feel like that's the main problem that we're seeing now. And to Al's point, I really feel like the Bible and Christianity and all that stuff it's a bat that they use, but it's a mask that they hide behind. All of that is being used to
it's just a different weapon.
Yes, but they're hiding their ignorance, their hatred, their anti-humanity is being dressed up as Jesus, and they put a nice little Bible on it, and they're passing it on as, well, this is what the Bible says. That's not what the Bible says. That's nothing. You're hiding your ignorance. You're hiding your prejudice, and we should be talking about that. Not I don't want to talk about Christianity, religion. Let's talk about your prejudice and your ignorance and why you're such a bad person.
That's exactly what that issue is about. As I've done a lot of jobs in my life, I'm going to say that right now. So I worked for a church for almost like 8.5 years, and it was so fascinating because I worked in a Christian church, and even growing up as Catholic, I found it so fascinating that people needed like the 10 Commandments. They needed something to hold them accountable. Like, oh, if I follow these rules, that means I'm a good person. Instead of questioning, am I really truly being a good person? And the reality is I get into these arguments a lot with not just like people out on the street, but also with family, because they are also very conservative. And I get it all the time, specifically with my mother. And I'm like, I have nothing against you being conservative. However, if you are being, and pardon my French, if you're being a shitty person, like you're being a shitty person and you're trying to use religion and God to justify that you truly don't care about anyone but yourself. And the whole point that people like to bring up, well, because Jesus this, and I'm like, hello, Jesus went and flipped tables when shit wasn't going correct. Like, he did not just sit there and just take it and just idolize and let the people in power do whatever the hell they wanted to do. He was with the outcasts, the rejected people. He helped those who were disabled. So if you're someone who identifies in that religion, I have nothing against that. But when you're being absolutely horrid to people that are not like you, that are from different minorities, and then you're going to put and slap God and the Bible and the cross on that, and I'm like, you're a freaking hypocrite. You're full of smoke and like hot air. Like,
and you know who the people are that meet the definition that you just said is the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. Because if you want to piss somebody off at the Heritage Foundation, you talk about the Bible and you put right in front of them, okay, let's talk about Leviticus. Mm-hmm. And here's the sentence in Leviticus written by God only knows who, 700 years ago, and it's been rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, let's talk about it being okay to have 20 wives. Let's talk about it's okay to stone your wife because she does this. If she wears this cloth, she can be put to death. Let's talk about all of these examples where you pull that exact same sentence out and go, but do you agree with this? Yeah. And do you agree with this? And it pisses people off at the Heritage Foundation because how dare you question the Word of God?
Mm-hmm. But it's already written there.
It's written.
But it's funny because like at the training that I met Brian at, the whole Sodom and Gomorrah came up, and I always laugh at Sodom and Gomorrah because they use it to like condemn gay people, like, oh, the people in Sodom and Gomorrah wanted to have sex with the God's messengers. But it's like, I love how the people that want to protect children are the ones that completely ignore the fact that Lot was about to give his 2 virgin daughters to the people outside for them to rape and have sex with and kill, most probably, because in another part of the Bible, they actually do take the young woman and they kill her. So it's this kind of almost like inability to see beyond the agenda that you're trying to push, where you are unable to see that story is not about homosexuality. It's not about anything except for like these people wanted to rape people, and raping people is not okay because that is inhospitable. And they just like, they ignore the fact that Lot was, they think Lot is such a good person. He saved the angels. No, he's not a good person. He was about to give his 2 daughters away to get raped.
Brian, last point.
Yeah, I think I actually think that religion is a vehicle that people use. It's the perfect vehicle for justifying any and every hatred, prejudice, any way that you've been socialized. I feel that you could find a Bible verse, and I'm sure that there are websites where you could probably, a funny website where you could say, like, can you help me justify blah, blah, blah? And you can find it in the Bible where it can be justified. So I really think that it is up to the people of good conscience. It is up to the people of goodwill and up to the people that want to make a positive change for our students, for our people coming up and for everybody to really educate themselves on the fact that to be a good person means developing a moral compass inside of oneself, not looking outside. And if you're going to look outside in terms of using the Ten Commandments, like you said, or using biblical scriptures, use it as an adjunct, not as the way that you focus your life and that is the absolute pillar for you. Because are you telling me that the reason I don't murder people, or the reason I don't rob a bank, or the reason I don't do a hit and run, or whatever it is because the Bible told me to do that? No, I don't do that because I have developed a moral compass inside of myself that tells me that that is not correct. So people that are saying the Bible and Christianity in particular is the thing that prevents me from being an awful person, is a very big red flag that tells me you're an awful person.
Yep.
I just want to end with that.